Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I'll tell you what, as 2024 is racing to a close, we are setting you up for growth success in 2025 and beyond. And on Monday's episode, we had the amazing B. Randall Willis on to talk about business growth and growing your team and really moving everyone in the same direction of your vision and your dreams and your goals. And that's why today we are supplementing all of that with a conversation that we have to have as business owners, and that is around HR. And today's guest views HR in such a different way that he is part of a great solution in the world to bring HR up to modern standards. There's so many old and archaic ways about HR that today's entrepreneur is changing the game in such positive ways. Let me tell you all about him. His name is Johnathen Evans-Guilbault. He's the co-founder and CEO of SopHRa. They are an HR SaaS company connecting real job data with real outcomes through job analysis. For example, this was as soon as I saw this messaging, I thought to myself, we have to have Johnathen on the show. They say, and they ask, why does an entry-level job require 5 to 7 years of experience? What's the difference between a master's with a 3.2 GPA versus one from a top-tier school? The answer to those questions, in Johnathen's belief and mine as well, I share this, is that these requirements are based on intuition, not real requirements. So Johnathen is an HR practitioner with over a decade of experience in the fields of classification and position management. And for all of us who are serious about our business growth, we're going to learn a lot from Johnathen here today. His company is doing such cool things in the field of HR. There's going to be a lot of considerations that we take away as we grow our own teams and nurture those teams for success. So I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Johnathen Evans-Guilbault. All right, Johnathen, I'm so excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about HR. It's my love. It's my passion.
Heck yes. And I will say, I said it in the teaser to today's episode, that you do view it quite differently. And I'm excited to hear all of those perspectives. But before we get to that stuff, take us beyond the bio. Who's Johnathen? How'd you start doing all these awesome things?
Oh my gosh. So it all started when I was just a college student. There was a job opportunity at a local federal agency here. And lo and behold, I applied and got in. And that exposure to HR radically just changed my life, because I began to realize, we spend close to a third of our lives in work. So why the hell does work have to be a drudgery? And that just kind of kick-started my love and my passion into it. And then on top of it all, I got to meet some really cool programmers along with it. So I was like, I wonder if we can augment HR with technology. And then boom, SopHRa was born. So yeah, it's great. Awesome.
Yes, it seems to me like somewhere along the way you learned, and I attribute this to your entrepreneurial DNA, you learned to question the way that things have always been done. I teased those questions at the top of this episode.
Yes.
Johnathen, where'd that come from?
Oh my gosh. So one of the biggest things that got me was, how on earth do you come up with your criteria to figure out who you want for your jobs? And no manager could answer me that question. They said, I got a little feeling, but no one could tell me definitively, data, empirical, whether qualitative or quantitative data to back up those intuitions. And I was like, so basically, we don't know what we don't know here. We're just perpetuating. And I had one manager tell me, I shit you not, one manager told me, I just go to Google and I copy and paste. I was like, and I bet you everyone else is doing the same thing, and we're just chasing our tail here. So I thought, okay, what can we do? And that's when job analysis came to mind. And that's the key to really stopping this negative feedback cycle and actually moving us into the right direction. and the rest is history. So yeah.
Yeah, Johnathen, I'll tell you what, I'll put my hand in the air. I'll bear the brunt of the word that you used, which is perpetuate, because we have all done exactly what you just said. We've all gone to Google, searched for a job description, copied it. And even today, it's even easier because there's AI, so we can just have that write it for us. So we're all guilty of that. But job analysis, once you said that, I was like, that's something I've never done. Probably most business owners have never done it because we're worried about the 500 other things that we're responsible for. What the heck is job analysis?
So job analysis, think of job analysis as this gigantic X-ray machine. And what it does is when you use it, when you turn it on, you see all of the components and the processes that a job does. So it basically lists out what knowledge, skills, abilities, other characteristics you need from the worker, and then what tasks, duties, and responsibilities, and how frequently they do those things in the work itself. So that is what job analysis is in a nutshell. And to your point, Brian, it takes time. It takes money. And when you're an entrepreneur, you ain't got time. You're doing 200 different things at once. So, of course, you're going to go to Google. Of course, you're going to have Claude or ChatGPT write the job description for you. And so that's where I came up with the idea of, all right, let's make it easier for business owners to do this really crucial process. And all it takes is an hour or less of their time.
All right, Johnathen, you're leading us there, so keep going down that path with us. What does it look like to make that easier?
All right, so basically, you take an hour of your time and we guide you through those questions, so those tasks, how frequently they're performed, the knowledge, the skills, the abilities that go into those different tasks. And then through the magic of our science, as well as AI, we're then able to produce the job description, the performance plan, the job announcement, the interview questions, all of those HR related things in seconds. And best of all, they're updated as your business grows. So that way you're not having to redo all of these administrative tasks. You can actually focus on what's more important, which is growing your business. And doing so in a way that's scientifically validated and customized to what you really need in your business, not what Google says you need.
Yeah, Johnathen, I'll tell you what, I love that brief overview of SopHRa and all the cool things that it does, because I'm a big believer that success leaves clues. And so when you talk about generating interview questions and generating the actual tasks that people will complete in a given role, to me, I know that each of those things is intentional because it's utilizing your subject matter expertise and you're baking that into what the technology is enabling for your users. So walk us through that path. It's going to sound on the surface level like you're walking us through your developmental path of all of these different features, but I know that it's also going to be revealing when you sat down and said, what do these businesses need? It's revealing, well, first things first, they need job interview. Well, first we need the job description, then we need the interview questions. Walk us through that developmental path.
Oh my gosh. So the first thing that any of us as business owners do is we have to identify the work. We have to identify the work that's needed. And so our system helps you do that by articulating the job duties that are done. And see, when most of us say the work that's required, we immediately think of a job title. But a job title is just that. It's a title. We break it down even further. What does the job do? What are the elements of the work that are done? And so, again, we walk you through, take you by the hand through that primrose path, and then we ask you to identify, okay, what knowledge do they need? What level of proficiency do they need in that knowledge? So, like, do they need an emerging level of proficiency? Do they need an intermediate level or an advanced expert level of proficiency in that particular KSA or knowledge, skill, ability? And so then when we have all of those elements, those data points, We then just ask you to push a button, and then our system has scientific guardrails put on it that then interprets all of the data you have given us, and then it generates that product, that solution. So for the interview questions, for example, it not only gives you the interview questions, it gives you the behavioral anchors that demonstrate the levels of proficiency for that particular question. So you're not having to guess. You're just having to listen to the interviewee and make that determination of, okay, on a level of 1 to 5, 5 being the most, how greatly are they demonstrating that particular competency that you're wanting? And so that's the interview question. But the other thing is, let's say you bring them on board. What kind of training do you need for them? Well, our system identifies their training plan. So that way you can say, okay, I know I need them within the first 30 days to take X, Y, and Z training from this source. All right. That's golden, because now you as the entrepreneur, you're no longer having to think through these things per se. All you have to do is connect them with the resources. And that's huge. That's a huge administrative burden lifted from people. And it allows entrepreneurs to do what they're best at, which is see a problem, solve the problem. Yeah, ultimate.
Johnathen, there's so many ingredients there that I want to go deeper into, so I'll try to withhold my excitement and go into these one by one. But let's start with interview questions because, well, actually, I guess here's the thing. The next few questions, what I'm really thinking is that part of what you're getting at is that one thing doesn't necessarily lead to another. Just because I have an impressive academic degree doesn't mean, you use the word proficiency, does not mean that I'm proficient in anything whatsoever. And so a lot of these things we're talking about is lining up and predicting in a scientific and reliable way of what's this person's job performance going to actually be.
Correct.
So with that in mind, let's start with the interview questions, because there are great interview questions. Someone who's naturally curious like myself, I could ask someone questions all day long, but what types of questions actually lead us to having strong predictive abilities with regards to someone's job performance?
You know, Brian, you touch on a very, very sensitive topic, especially for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, in my opinion, we like to connect with people. We like to be spontaneous, somewhat flexible. And so we tend to favor unstructured interviews. Well, our system enforces what's called a structured interview. And it is able to, the scientific literature says that a structured interview is able to predict performance at 0.38, if I remember correctly, which is very, very high. So what we can do is we give you the interview question, and that interview question isn't random. It's tied directly to the duties and tasks you pre-identified in the job analysis, as well as the knowledge, skills, abilities that you identified in that analysis. And so long as the interview question is anchored within that scientific validated basis, the question is valid. Okay. So then what we want to then assess, as I mentioned earlier, is the level of proficiency they demonstrate in that particular task or competency. And so what we then do is we use behavioral anchors or demonstrators, as I call them, that mark, okay, this person is likely to possess level 4 on this proficiency scale as opposed to level 5. And these behavioral anchors are not replacements of your judgment as the interviewer, as the hiring manager. They're really guides to your judgment. So they help guide your judgment and skills to determine, all right, this person really has it, or this person doesn't have it at all. They went to ChatGPT and just flubbed it. So yeah.
Yeah, Johnathen, here we are talking about judgment. I'll be honest with you. This is me totally calling myself out on the air here. And that is when I interview someone across all my different businesses, I've got different team members who do different capacities of work. And where I settle in most of these is I'm like, can this person be a good fit on our teams? That's very important to me. And then two, are they able to learn? Because if you give me someone who's eager to work and excited and has fresh ideas, then I can teach them the things that they need to know. So, Johnathen, obviously that is a bit of an informal approach that I take to hiring. Walk me down that path.
No. Believe it or not, what you've touched on is something known as cognitive ability analysis, which is a form of job analysis that is, we are after a person's mental capabilities. So you mentioned, for example, someone who's curious, someone who's eager to learn, open to new experiences. These are things that we can assess, but the way we assess them is different. So, for example, if you're trying to determine if someone is curious about something, what you would do is you would most likely outline a scenario-based question. Like, for example, you want to create you see a problem and you want to create a solution to that problem. How would you go about creating that solution? That would show creativity. That would show whether or not, I would go to an expert in the field. That shows, okay, they're willing to learn. It's something beyond their expertise. So again, all of that can be evaluated. You just need to, in advance, identify that those are the qualities that you want in your hire. Otherwise, what you're doing, as you mentioned, Brian, otherwise what you're doing is you're being spontaneous and you're not really being intentional in assessing that candidate for those skills.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure it makes sense. It makes me feel a bit better, Johnathen, about my approach to it, because it is rooted in science and experience on your behalf, which I very much trust your opinion there. Let's talk about the other side of that coin, which is a big thing to me when I consider it, which is team fit. How do we measure that stuff? Because for me, it very much feels intuitive, and I'm an extreme extrovert. I love people. I'm always interacting with people, and so I love people. So that is something that I always consider. How do we actually, I don't know if we should quantify it. How do we assess it in a way that actually makes sense?
You put it on, you spot on, Brian. Personalities is something that is very nebulous. And personality psychology, which is a field in and of itself, it is a valid discipline. I firmly believe that, and so does the scientific community. Personality psychology has its role. But any personality psychologist will tell you that when it comes to quantifying or measuring personality, you cannot put them into a box. You have to put them within a continuum. And so when it comes to measuring team fit or the potential for team fit, some of the ways that you can do that, rather than paying for a personality examination like the Big Five, referring to the Big Five dimensions of personality examination, rather than doing that, what you could do is you could actually put them into a work-based scenario. So, for example, during the interview process, you could actually say, listen, we need you to work with this group of people on this problem that we're currently facing. And then you would have a rating criteria that you would give to those individual team members. And then after the task is completed, those individual team members would then rate how this person fit within the overall team. Now, the problem with that is that teams are not something that are just one-offs. They are established entities, meaning even though you have this person on one day, that's not really long enough to see how they fit over a period of time. And that's where something like a probationary period comes in. Probationary periods are part of the assessment period. You use those to leverage how well they're fitting with the team. And it's not just you who's doing that. It should also be that new employee. That employee should also be examining, hey, do I really fit with this company? Is it more than just a paycheck? Am I looking forward to going to work? The incumbent of the job should also be using that probationary period to examine if they really mesh with your culture.
Yeah, Johnathen, I love hearing your perspective on these things because this is rooted in your real life experiences. Obviously, we can talk about all the great things you're doing with SopHRa, but even before then, you've been within the world of HR, seeing all different sides of the table.
Yes.
And so I want to ask you this, hearing you say the word like probationary period, sometimes that has a negative connotation in English of probation. Oh, you're on thin ice. What can we do as business leaders to set our new people up for success within that probationary period? What are the check-ins look like? What do the resources look like to set them up for success?
The number one thing that you can do to set them up for success is show them the pathway for success. So many business owners, when they hire a person, they assume that that person is static. People are not static. People want to be challenged. They want to grow. And so if you equip them with the tools they need to chart their own course within your company, that is the number one driver for success. So what do I mean by that? I mean, use the job analysis to create a training plan so that you put them on that plan from day one. And then you use the job analysis to create a pathway of career. So the job analysis, what's great about it and what's great about our software is that we not only identify that particular role, we show them how that role interacts with all the other roles. So they can chart their course from whatever position they start at to another position within the company. That is how you drive success. And then what will happen is during that probation or trial period, that will fly by because that person won't think of it as they're being judged. They'll truly look at it as, okay, this is for me. Do I see myself staying with this company or do I not? It's a paradigm shift in how you think of that period, but that's really how business owners should approach it. It is crucial. It is very crucial. But usually within the course of 3 months, you'll know whether or not a person is a good fit or not.
Yeah, Johnathen, you talk about paradigm shifts. That's really how I feel about your approach to all of this stuff is you're talking about the most intimate part of our businesses, which is the people behind them, but we're taking a really scientific and experience-backed approach combined with technology to set everybody up for success on all aspects of it. That's a different approach, Johnathen, because it has been such a human-backed approach. Talk to us about the reception there, because obviously AI is interrupting a lot of different industries, but what's the reaction been to a technology-backed approach to HR?
You want to know what the reaction has been? The reaction has been, why should I bother when I can go to Google? And I'll never forget, I came across a McKinsey study, and it said that 90% of surveyed businesses, and their sample size was 3,500 businesses. So 90% of those businesses said they couldn't find qualified candidates for their jobs. And yet, virtually all of them Googled. And I'm like, there's the problem. Why aren't you fixing the problem? Google is not the answer. You need to take the time to analyze what your work, what your organization truly needs, and then use that information to get the people, to communicate to the people who want to work. Communicate to them what they really need to do, and it solves itself. It really does. Um, I there was a period of time where I was out of work for 6 months. And I remember coming across some job announcements that were like, 15 years experience. And I'm like, the scientific literature only says that at most 2 years of experience actually has any positive impact on the job and job performance. So why are you asking for 15 years? I saw one job announcement that said, we want you to have a degree from a top tier school. How does that have any bearing on the job and whether or not you can do the job? So we are so caught up in the way we've always done job announcements and looking and recruiting for people that we've forgotten the number one basic thing, which is you first have to identify what you need in order to articulate that need. It's mind-boggling to me. Absolutely
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
I so share those feelings about all of that stuff, Johnathen. To your point about years of experience, I remember, so I only worked in corporate for 10 months after I graduated because I started my first business when I was 19. And so in the corporate world, I was an entrepreneur already. I was doing all of the things and figuring them out as I went. And in corporate, I saw people who would say, I've been here for 20 years and this is the way we do things. And I thought to myself, you've done the same thing 20 years in a row. Like you have 1 year of experience 20 times over. So I love the fact that you so comfortably call these things out, Johnathen. I want to switch gears a little bit because here in these conversations, I love talking not only to you as a subject matter expert, but you're also a business owner. You're also one of us as a fellow entrepreneur. And so I'm going to totally put you on the spot. Listeners, Johnathen had no idea I was going to bring this up in today's conversation, but I know that you're also a classically trained vocalist, and listeners are probably benefiting from the fact that you've got that smooth, buttery audio here in today's episode. But also, you've been in several theatrical productions. So, Johnathen, you might be wondering why I'm bringing this up. And my question to you is, you learn things from those experiences. It gives you different perspectives. And all of those things also translate into life and translate into business. What are some of those ingredients and experiences that have translated to life as an entrepreneur and given you fresh perspectives from that?
One of the most primary lessons learned in all of those experiences was the power of connection and the power of emotion to connect with people. You may come from a totally different background, but our emotions are universal. You feel anger, you feel sadness, you feel frustration, you feel hopelessness. You feel more. The gamut of human emotional experience is so vast and multiplicative in terms of how we experience this world. And so I took that lesson as an entrepreneur because I truly want to make the world of work better for everyone. We spend too much time at work for it to be a fucking cluster. We need it to be an enjoyable experience. And all of us emotionally are tired of the same old, same old. We're frustrated that in order to have an entry-level job, you need 3 to 5 years experience. And connecting with people through those emotions is I'm hoping will be the catalyst for change. We've got to change the world of work. We just got to.
Yes, amen to that. Truer words have never been spoken. So I love the fact that in your role, you've already talked about teaming up with different developers and obviously building SopHRa into what it is today. It's a very cool SaaS product that is changing the world in those positive ways. How has it lived up, or has it lived up to expectations? What are some ingredients of the entrepreneurial journey that have surprised you along the way?
One of the things that surprised me the most was all the roadblocks that come out of nowhere. I mean, so one of the things is it's a cloud-based software as a service. And I was like, how the hell are we going to get to the cloud? And I was very fortunate to stumble across Microsoft's Founders Hub. And I applied for it, and lo and behold, we got the credits we needed to put it into the cloud. I was like, thank you. So that was one obstacle. The other obstacle is job analysis has so many methodologies. So many methodologies. And so the programmers, my co-founders, came to me and were like, how are we going to do all these methodologies? So we had to prioritize which methods to use in our product. And so we narrowed it down to 2, and we're just starting out with those 2. And that's one thing. And then I threw them a curveball, and I was like, well, you do realize that, you use job analysis to determine pay for positions, right? And they were like, excuse me? And so, I mean, just one obstacle after another, just developing the product. It's just crazy. And then the other obstacle, though, the biggest one, and I think one that's common to all entrepreneurs everywhere, is funding, getting funding. And when you're bootstrapping, which is what we're doing, it can be very difficult. And when you try and partner with, investors, whether they're angel investors, venture capitalists, whatever, that becomes a difficulty in and of itself too, because most of the time those investors want to see traction. But when you're building the plane as it's being flown, it's kind of difficult to show traction. I mean, come on. So those are the primary obstacles. And what I want to encourage everyone to really do is this. Start with your network. Start with those people who are close to you, and then work out. Because you have a great idea. Don't let anyone shit on your idea. You have a great idea. Just start from those closest to you and work out, and the greatness of that idea will act as a magnet. So yeah. Sorry, I went on a little tangent there.
No, it's really well said, Johnathen. This is the real stuff. That's why listeners have come to know and love the show, is because guests like you bring the real stuff, no filters. It's things that all of us entrepreneurs go through. So I so appreciate that transparency and just calling it like it is. And hearing you talk about the world of investing and what investors are looking for, I'm just like, it's another industry ripe for the picking. The same things that you're doing and saying within the world of HR could all be applied to the world of investment and VCs and seed money and all of that good stuff. So Johnathen, I appreciate those insights. I don't know how you're going to top it for my final question. I always love asking guests this broad question because you can take it in any direction that you want. And that is, what's your one best piece of advice or takeaway? Knowing that listeners are tuning in at all different stages of their growth journey, what's that one thing that you hope they walk away from today's episode with?
We as entrepreneurs have a calling to change the worlds in which we live. And those worlds, they are different in scope. They are small to medium to large to gargantuan. It doesn't matter. We have a calling to change this world for the better. It's incidental that we have monetary and financial success through our ideas. But if we continue to change the world for the better, everyone benefits. That rising tide lifts all ships. And so I don't want you to lose hope. I don't want you to lose hope at all, because we are arcing towards a better future together. One problem at a time, one entrepreneur at a time, one company at a time. So yes, that's what I want people to take away from us.
Yes, Johnathen, you are so preaching to the choir here. You and I for sure are biased, but entrepreneurs, we are the vehicles through which we can reshape the world and society and industries. And I so love that perspective and really appreciate those words of encouragement for our listeners. And if they want to go deeper into all the amazing and brilliant work that you and your team are up to with SopHRa, drop those links on us. Where should they go from here?
So number one thing is reach out to us on LinkedIn. We are on LinkedIn. Follow us. We haven't lately because of the hurricane, but we frequently drop blogs that are evidence-based HR, and they are filled with tools that you can use and leverage. And also look out in the future, because when we open our product up for beta testing, we're going to ask everyone to come in, break our system, show us where we need to improve, because we're aiming for 2025 launch, public launch, and there are so many businesses who need our help. So yes, follow us on LinkedIn. It'd be great.
Yes, listeners, that's actually how we came across all of the work that Johnathen and his team are up to. So if you want to be early there, you're going to be part of the change. Not only is Johnathen changing the world, but the more real life users and businesses who are on board, the quicker that development and really innovation happens. So don't be shy, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. We're dropping those links down below in the show notes. You'll find a link to SopHRa's LinkedIn. You'll find a link to Jonathan's personal LinkedIn if you want to continue the conversation with him. We're also linking to SopHRa's website, so definitely check the show notes down below and just click right on through. You don't have to remember any of those here while we're on the air. And Johnathen, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was great.